Welcome to the Geek to Geek podcast, where maybe we should try to force more puns into our intro. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
There are always more puns. Always room for puns.
Nice.
They're puntastic.
Tonight we are talking about Zelda, Breath of the Wild. So the Triforce. Anyway, it's... oh, man. I just shouldn't try to do puns. It's not good for me. We're going to talk Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I thought it was mostly going to be a one-sided conversation because I've been playing, since the day it came out, and then you were going to buy a Nintendo Switch, so why don't you tell people what happened?
I ended up not being able to get a Switch. I sold something on eBay that was enough to cover a used Wii U and the Zelda game and still have money left over. So I just straight up did that because I talked to a couple of people who had the Wii U version, and from what they were saying, and I watched videos online as well, I couldn't tell a difference. That side-by-side frame rate comparisons, graphics-wise, I was like, they look so similar. Even when I had the numbers beside me, I don't really see it. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about the other day, where I don't really get the better graphics. I don't see as much of why it's a big deal. I literally couldn't see the difference in frame rates in a side-by-side video. So I was like, I'm going to get the cheap one.
But now you're the proud owner of a brand new used Wii U, right?
I am, and I'm really excited about it because there are a lot of games that I want to play on it that you and I have talked about, probably not on here, but that we've talked about, just wonderful first-party games that I'm going to get to play that they've re-released. So I'm really liking the system right now.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah, you'll have to, play a little bit of catch up, but I think you'll really like it just because you like Nintendo systems. So it's probably a good investment.
And the gamepad lets me actually do it the exact same way that I was going to be playing it on a Switch. The gamepad plays Zelda really, really well, actually. It's not as vibrant and awesome as it would be on the Switch, but Jennifer gets to watch Dr. Pimple Popper, and I get to play Legend of Zelda at the same time, so it's awesome.
It's always that channel with you guys. Okay, we should get into Zelda, because we have, way more notes than we normally have, so I can't tangent too much this week. I want to say up front, so it's a very systems heavy game, so we're going to talk a lot about systems and probably things we ran into organically. I guess if you consider that spoilers. I mean, the game's all about exploration. We will talk a little bit about the story, but I will save it for the end in case you really don't want any story spoilers, but it's Zelda. It's a Zelda plot, so there's not a whole lot there to spoil. With that said, if you don't want to hear anything about the actual game, I will just say up front, this is my favorite Zelda ever.
Yes.
I was not confident saying that last week because I felt like I had barely scratched the surface, but now I've beaten the game. I've probably spent 50 or 60 hours with it just because I've been able to play it on the Nintendo Switch and I can take it everywhere in the house with me all the time. So yeah, this is my favorite Zelda, easily. And if you buy a Switch, this is the must-buy game for the Switch.
Yeah, this is literally a system seller for me that I've never really had that, and it is by far the best Zelda that I've ever played. That playing this makes me feel like I did when I was 14 and playing Ocarina of Time for the first time, and this one makes me feel that way. It just has this feeling of pretty much everything that I like about games. It has, and it fixes so much of the stuff that I get frustrated with other Zelda games.
That's awesome.
So it's awesome. I am so all in. You're lucky I'm podcasting tonight and not playing Zelda right now. Jennifer has been a Breath of the Wild widow for the last few days.
No. And we were talking, and then you noticed that, I mean, we both kind of noticed we were talking about this, but it's Nintendo has finally taken Western sensibilities and put them into an open world game. It's Nintendo finally decided to play all the games that came out from all the other studios in the last 10 years and then build on modern things. And they haven't in so long. I mean, Zelda has felt so stale to me for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And it finally feels oh man, I was going to say a breath of fresh air, but that's bad.
Oh, that's good. More puns. More puns.
But it does. It
They're
feels
punning
like
wild.
that. Yeah, oh man. It feels like a breath of fresh air because it is. It's so different from the other Zelda games, and there's enough of that core Zelda DNA that it still feels right, but It's its own game, and it's like Nintendo's take on an open world in a way that we've never had before, and I love it. Like, it's so good.
And one of my actual first experiences in playing through an open world game was Skyrim, and I got distracted constantly. I was just going and having, doing everything in Skyrim. That's the way I am with this, only it's worse. That I can put a marker on my map and go directly toward that pin, and then I get distracted by something that looks pretty and go over here, and then 3 hours later, I'm like, oh yeah, there was a shrine 20 feet away. And it's just like, there's so much in this game, but it still feels like Zelda. It never doesn't feel like I'm playing a Legend of Zelda game, which is astonishing because of how different it is from the like Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess kind of formula that they've had going on.
Yeah, and like one of the things that just drew me into this game is that there's no real tutorial. There's like just barely, but not really. I mean, the thing I hated the most about the last bunch of 3D Zelda games is how often it stops what you're doing to tell you stuff. Like, you pick up a new item, you pick up a new rupee. Like, if it's been... Like, it always stops you to tell, okay, I know that the red one is worth 20. Like, whatever. Stop interrupting me. And, like, it was to the extreme with, like, I couldn't even play Skyward Sword because it was like a never-ending tutorial that was extremly boring. Same thing with Twilight Princess when I went back to it. Like, I cannot play those games because they are so slow to start. There's so much hand-holding. They're not fun at the beginning. It's just tutorial after tutorial, and it's like, I get it, just like let me play the game. And Breath of the Wild starts, and there's no real tutorial. Like, it makes you pick up a couple items and like prove that you know how to like walk from one area to another, and then it kicks you into the Great Plateau. And the Great Plateau is like the thing that is the closest to a tutorial that the game has. And it's like the zones in World of Warcraft that you go to like level 10 on, where it's just like, oh, I know the basics of how to do this now, and it's kind of this contained yet there's a mildly dangerous kind of slant to it, except in this game it's very dangerous and you die a lot. Yes. Even in the tutorial zone. Yeah, and it teaches you that you'll die a lot, but that it'll be okay also. And it's like, you get the 4 core abilities that are like your magic abilities, which are really basically iPhone apps with your Sheikah Slate. I could not unsee the fact that the Sheikah Slate is basically just a smartphone, and I kept thinking about it as like his iPhone the whole time, and I don't know why. But you go and you have to hit up like the 4 shrines on the Great Plateau to get each of the 4 core abilities for your Sheikah Slate. And after that, you get access to the glider, and then you're set loose on the world, and you can go literally anywhere. Like, it will not stop you. You can wander into not impossible areas, but very, very hard areas right away. And it's your own fault, but it's fun. And because of that, I think speedruns for this game are going to be insane.
I really want to see speedruns of this game, not because of how quickly they're going to get through it, because I don't care about that. I want to see players who are that much better at this game than I am able to do that, because I simply do not understand how people will be able to, and I know they're going to. That I know you can beat this game with 3 hearts and just the base stamina. I'm sure you can. I just simply don't understand how that is humanly possible.
Yeah, and I actually played with 3 hearts for a really long time because, well, we'll talk about it here in a minute. I can't let myself tangent. We have lots to talk about. I guess the main tutorial thing that I wanted to like really hit home before we move on is that it's the first Zelda game that just trusts you not to be stupid. And I saw a really interesting article about it. I think it was on Polygon. But it was all about how, like, the game just trusts you to go out there and figure it out. And it tells you a little bit, but doesn't tell you too much. And it's like they're smart enough to realize that with all of the enthusiast press out there and with all of the just fans of a game, like, there will be guides within the first day. You can go to like the Zelda subreddit and there will be like a step-by-step, like, here are all of the tips and tricks to Zelda if you want to know it and not figure it out organically. There will be stuff on GameFAQs. There's going to be stuff on like IGN, like a step-by-step walkthrough. Like, all of that will exist within a week of the game coming out. So they don't need to cram all this tutorial junk into the game and just bog it down. And I think it serves the game really well.
The only problem that I have seen that with it not holding your hand, with it trusting you not to be stupid, is that I worry about the kids who are going to play this. Like when you and I were young, picking up a game like this, because this is an unbelievably hard game for me. And because I mean, I had the nickname in World of Warcraft, Professor Stands on All the Fire. And this game is again making me earn that nickname. So I wonder about like 8-year-olds playing this game, if they're going to be able to do a lot of that stuff, because it's not terribly easy. And also, like, my wife tried it, like Jennifer picked it up, and just explaining to her how it happened. And it was before I did the first Divine Beast dungeon, and just doing stuff like that, she was like, I hate this game. Just not because it was hard necessarily. She didn't like this style of game, but it was like, I was trying to explain everything about it. She's like, I so don't care about all that. But it's not her, but it was just like there was so much to tell her that I was wondering how, like,
maybe that's where you went wrong, because like you were telling her and instead of letting her figure it out. And like that's one of the things with my kids, right? Like I see them play games, I see them learn new games, and it's not about sitting down and telling someone. It's about giving somebody enough hands-on time that they figure it out on their own. So like I don't think you're giving kids enough credit for like how much they will just throw themselves at a game over and over and over. Like, there are so many games that my daughter is so much better than I am at them because she has the time, and she will just throw herself at it over and over again. So, like, she's way better at Kirby than I ever am going to be already. You know, she's 6. Like, she can just destroy a Kirby game, and it's miraculous to watch. And there's a bunch of games like that where if they come to me and ask for help, I honestly cannot help them because they are better at the game than I am.
That is awesome.
And, you know, they're 4 and 6. Like, kids have an amazing ability to learn, and, like, I don't discount that. But, I mean, I guess we should just talk about the fact that, like, this is a Zelda game where failure is always an option. You know, it's harder than probably any Zelda game before it, but I do think it's tough, but it's fair. And one of the things I saw, this is kind of what I was getting at before with the hard thing, most of the time when I was getting hit, it's either like a totally reasonable amount of damage, like a part of a heart, or it was an instant kill. And it was like one of the two extremes. Like there was no middle damage tier, it felt like. So what I ended up doing for a huge chunk of the game was playing with 3 hearts and just upgrading my stamina, because I love to climb on things. Like, climbing on things is so fun, and stamina lets you climb on them for longer and better, and like you can go higher and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't even know how long I was on 3 hearts until I found out that you need a bunch of hearts to be able to get the Master Sword. It's a requirement.
Yeah.
And that is the only reason that I started upgrading my hearts. Otherwise, I was kind of tempted to try to just do the whole game on 3 hearts.
I went immediately for the hearts. I have enough now. I got my Master Sword this morning as of this recording. And since I have 2 stamina containers, like that's it. That's the number of shrines that I've done, is to be able to get the Master Sword, and then I got my 2nd stamina container today. And honestly, I don't see a lot of difference in the stamina. Like, I don't climb like the full face of the mountain like you do probably. I run around a lot. So my stamina refills. I walk for a few seconds and then I run more. That's how I get around a lot more than I climb pretty much everything, but I use the physics of the game to hit a crack, let my stamina refill, and then move further up. I feel like you in this game, because I'm figuring out ways to break not break, but take advantage of the game's physics and systems.
That's good, like that you're doing that. But like you will get to parts where there are mountains that are taller and they don't have like good spots to stop on, and it just gets, I don't know. I immediately saw how fun climbing was, and I never wanted to be able to like I never wanted to get stuck not being able to climb something that I wanted to. So I just doubled down on stamina, and I never once regretted it. Like, if I were to play this game again from scratch, I would probably try to do just like a stamina only run, just because I think it would be fun. And I had a lot of fun learning how to like dodge guys and avoid damage. And if you do a perfect dodge, you get a flurry attack that looks so cool. Like, I felt like so a badass. Awesome. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then the other thing about it being tough but fair is that it has a really good autosave system. Like, better than most games I've seen. I feel like most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time when you die, it will load you at a point where like you would have saved manually if you were paying attention to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like the last point that you would have...
Most of the time.
Like the last point you would have quick saved if it were a PC game, you know? Like right before you're going to go into an encounter. The only time it falls down a little bit is if you're in a very heavily infested area of enemies, because it's like, I think it tries to watch for like when you're far enough away to be considered safe. And if there's lots and lots of enemies and you're like sneaking through them or running through them or whatever, and you never really get far enough away from enough enemies, it won't quite get it. But again, that's the exception. The rule is that it's almost always good autosaves.
Probably the worst save that I've had is a loss of maybe about 30 minutes. And I think it's for that I think it was because I kept going around a lot and not necessarily getting away from the enemies.
See, that's crazy to me, because the worst I ever lost was like 2.5 minutes. And I'm wondering if the autosave is different on the Wii U and the Switch, because they're different hardware. I wonder if one of them supports it better than the other.
I don't know. I've not had much issue with it. Like, it's only been a couple of times where I'm like, seriously, you brought me back there? And it was a major issue where I thought it had... And there were a couple of times where I thought it had saved and it hadn't. And I was like, it's fine. It saves all the time. Anyway, I didn't manually save it before I did something stupid. And then I lost all of the cooking that I had just done. And I was like, well, I'm not cooking again. I just went on about my day.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a difference between the versions. And I'm not sure. That's just me speculating.
Right.
But yeah, like I haven't had any problems. The autosave has worked fantastic for me the whole game. We should talk a little bit about the setting, because I think it's a really cool Zelda setting. Like it's
so good.
It's post-apocalyptic, kind of, but it's like pretty apocalyptic. Like the thing that I hate about Fallout games is that after I play them for like 20 hours, I just feel depressed because of the environment, right? Whereas this is a Zelda game where like, and this is the plot that you figure out within like the first hour, so I'm not really spoiling anything here, but it's like, it's a Zelda game where Link has failed, and Link goes into like a cryogenic sleep, and then he wakes up, and you wake up and the world is green again, right? And like the destruction happened 100 years ago, so it's had time for everything to recover. So it's kind of this like pretty apocalypse setting where there's some leftover technology from the stuff that happened before and that big disaster event with Ganon and stuff, but a lot of the time it's buried or dormant or destroyed. Sometimes it's still active, but like the environment is green. And I think that like vibrant green environment makes a huge difference in how I feel about a game by the time I've spent 40 or 60 hours with it.
Yeah, and this one feels a lot more, and I hate to say that it feels a lot more natural when you're talking about that, but it feels a lot more realistic in terms of if after an apocalypse like this, 100 years has passed, or however many years has passed, the sun would shine. I mean, things would be green, that there would be nature coming back and overtaking it, and it's not all earth tones, mud, and gray skies all the time. So I really do understand where you're coming from, because there are some truly breathtaking places in this game. Breathtaking, Breath of the Wild taking. I'm sorry, I'll just keep doing it all night long.
Oh, it's just going to be one of those episodes. There's technology in the game, and I think it's kind of an interesting use of technology because, like I said, it's kind of left over from that previous era. But the Sheikah Slate is basically a smartphone. I mentioned this a little bit, but it's like you go climb the towers, and their towers kind of like, you know, Assassin's Creed, whatever. You go climb up high and you activate the area. But when you get into that tower, you like put Link's smartphone into a little compartment, and he basically like downloads a local copy of Google Maps for the region. And
pretty much, yeah.
I couldn't unsee it. He's just downloading a local copy of the map to his smartphone. But I do like the tower climbing a lot. It's usually a puzzle in itself, not the first one or two, but besides those, it's always kind of like, how do I get up there? Or how do I fight my way to it, or sneak my way to it, or there's some kind of puzzle around it, which is fun.
Yep. And I still haven't, I've been playing this game for, I think, about 4 days now, and I've beaten 2 of the dungeons, 2 of the Divine Beast dungeons now, and I'm working on my 3rd, and I still haven't opened up every tower. Like, there is still at least one area that I haven't even traveled into yet. That this game is huge, and getting to the towers has actually been one of my goals recently. That was like, I just like doing this, and these are fun to get to and see what all they've done. And I really, really, really like the way that they've put the towers together. That I think my favorite was the Akala Tower, the one that was covered in corruption, and that had the like broken castle around it. Like, that one was really cool. Fun for me.
Yeah, the towers were, I think I did most of the towers before I did any of the like dungeon equivalents, which we'll talk about those later, but it's a little bit more spoilery. But I think I did all the towers before I did any of those, just because I have fun finding them and climbing stuff. I always do that in Assassin's Creed too. I unlock every like viewpoint before I do anything else, just because it's fun for me. I love climbing on stuff. And the towers themselves are like one of the interesting things about when you download the map and like get the local area from a tower that I think is extremely smart is that it's not like Ubisoft games where you get a map of the area and then suddenly you see like a million icons pop up. You are only getting the like topography of the map, right? You can zoom in and you can see like what different regions are called in Zelda, but you don't see a billion icons pop up, and it's like, oh man, there's so many things I have to get done in this open world game. Like, that's where Assassin's Creed turns into a chore sometimes, because you just look at the map and it's just so many things left undone that it just kind of like bugs you. And
yeah, I think that
Zelda
would bug me. I mean, I've never played an Assassin's Creed game, so I didn't quite know what you meant by that at first. And now I'm like, yeah, because the way that they handle the map in this, because I love seeing the regions, and then I'm like, I wonder what's over there, and then I just go.
Yes, for sure. One of the other things I want to talk about is cooking, because it's fun in this game. Like,
it's fun-ish.
It's fun, and there's this extremely satisfying cooking music that happens, but it's a very, like, isn't that sound effect so good?
And when you get basically the critical, it just makes you happy. It's like, ooh, it's a different sound.
And it's like, that's what Nintendo does so well, is like these little touches that's like, that little touch of like the way that the cooking happens and like the food bounces around in the bowl and the little cooking sound music that you get out of it and the success sound, that's like Nintendo at its core, right? That's the kind of stuff they do. Like, you're not going to see that in an Ubisoft game. You're not going to see that in, you know, the latest modern AAA game on PlayStation or Xbox. Like, it's a Nintendo touch, and I just love that kind of thing. And so the cooking, because of that sound effect, honestly, like the sound effect and the animation, it makes it super fun. And even at like, it was really fun for the first 20, 30 hours. And then for the other 30 hours, it was still fine because of that sound effect. But it got more and more to the point where I was like, I kind of wish there was like a quick menu where I could pick previous recipes and like do a batch cook. But part of that might just be like some of those MMO tendencies coming out. Like, can you just automate this for me? But I never got sick of the sound effect.
Even if it wasn't batch cooking, I wish it saved your recipes, because the only way that you can look at a recipe is if you have the item in your backpack. And if you've already eaten it and you want to make it again, you can't look at the recipe that you've done and found in the past.
Yeah, there are definitely some things they could improve there. But again, that sound effect is just spot on.
It is. It's just straight up one of the best parts of the game. And I know that's weird that this little 6-second kind of sound effect is like, no, this makes the game worth playing.
Yes. Okay, how about the shrines? What do you think of the shrines?
I love the shrines. Okay, I absolutely adore the shrines, except for just a couple of them. Like, I love Zelda puzzles. Like, I really can't even express how fun I find Zelda puzzles. I think I mentioned in our other episode that I ran a D&D campaign, or tried to, that was built around Legend of Zelda style puzzles. That does not translate really well to pen and paper, by the way. But I love these puzzles. And so when you told me that there were these like 5 to 10 minute like compact puzzle sets, I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And I've done, I think, 45 of them now from what the loading screen tells me. And I have only run into, I think, 2 that I've left out of frustration. And one of them that I had to look up on the internet because it was like 10 o'clock at night, which is way past my bedtime. And it was the last one I needed before I could get my Master Sword. And I was like, I just want to know how to do this. And it turns out I was like, oh, you could that. Okay. And there was only one that I truly hated and want to take someone out back and strangle them.
So I'm curious, are the 2 that made you angry, are they the ones that use the motion controls? Because yes. I've heard that those are notoriously horrible on the Wii U version.
It's not even that they're all... Are those in the Switch? I'm assuming they are the exact same kind of puzzles.
They are. They're the exact same puzzles, but they are not a pain. The way that, like, everyone I've talked to who's played the Wii U version has said that those puzzles are horrible on the Wii U. And everyone I've talked to on the Switch system has said that they're fine. And that's kind of how I felt. Like, they weren't the best puzzles, but I wasn't mad about them. Like, I didn't feel like they induced rage. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, motion control gimmick, whatever.
Let me think how to even put this. Of the ones that I've done so far, it wasn't so much the motion control that was the really big issue. It was the physics in the game. Because the motion controls combined with what is almost a frictionless steel ball doesn't make any sense to me. Where it's really hard to... It was the one of them where I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically you're maneuvering the ball through the labyrinth and trying to get it to come out the other side. Kind of like that wooden maze, if you've ever seen those that use knobs to tilt around. And the ball was not behaving like I expected it to. Like, it was almost like there was less friction there. And so it would roll differently than the angle showed that it should, based on the way that I understand that spheres roll. And then the same thing happened when I was like, there's one where you use the magnetism to take a cup and go underwater and pick up the balls out of it and dunk them in basically a little basket. And the balls rolled way more at my movement than I thought that they would. It's like the ball physics are just a little bit off for me and the way that I think that they're going to. So that's where I have issues with any of the motion controls, is when they tie in with a little bit of the loose physics of the game.
And it's totally fine on the Switch version. It is a unique problem to the Wii U version. Like, based on what I've heard from you and other people, like, none of them, I mean, they were motion control things, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it was like a couple minutes of like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do a motion control thing. Now I'm done with it. And everyone I've talked to in the Wii U version just hated them. Like, they said it was almost impossible, and like your level of frustration. And yeah but just a tip for that one, the one where you were talking about it rolling through like the maze labyrinth thing. You can flip that 180 degrees over and just have it roll off the bottom, by the way.
Oh, see, I caught it. I figured I had to catch it in the final tube of it, basically, the straightaway of it. I figured I had to position it that as it fell, it would just fall into the last part. And it was just getting it to actually roll straight that I had the issue with.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating. But like, I really do like that 5 to 10 minute puzzle formula.
Yes.
Because it's like a mini bite of a classic Zelda dungeon, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like, I have never been a fan of the really long Zelda dungeons, which is another reason that I probably don't like the other 3D Zelda games as much as most people, because those dungeons just drag on. It's like hours. Like, you spend hours in those things. And if you die, they send you back to a really bad starting point. There's usually only like 1 or 2 real checkpoints in those older Zelda dungeons. And this gives you the same like thrill of solving a Zelda dungeon puzzle, but it takes you 5 or 10 minutes, and it's this nice compact little bite of gameplay. And then once you do that, not only are you rewarded with getting like an orb, which you can trade in eventually for hearts and stamina, but it also turns it into a fast travel point, which I just think is a brilliant piece of design. Like, you are rewarded for the puzzle on so many levels.
it turns into a fast travel point even once you open the door. You don't have to beat it, I found out much later. So if you don't even want to go through with the puzzle and just come back, you can just make sure you open the door and activate it and turn the bottom blue, and you can go and fast travel back there at any point you want to do it. I realized that it was probably after 25 or 30 of them that I noticed, oh, that thing turns blue the moment that you open the door. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just the top of it that's still orange, meaning that it hasn't been solved. So, and I tried it, and sure enough, I could teleport back there.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I like all of that gameplay design. There's a system in the game that I've heard like mixed reviews of, and it's the main thing that comes up when people don't like the game. And really, there's two systems that tie together. So I wanted to talk about those. There's item degradation, right? Like items wear out and they break. That ties into inventory management too. So the item degradation part, I think it pretty much works.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I don't mind constantly switching weapons. I don't mind when it tells me that like this weapon is worn out and it's about to break, because whenever you last hit with a weapon, it does a critical attack, which is really cool. Like whether you throw it at an enemy or you just hit them with it in a normal attack, it will do a critical damage hit. And I don't mind the switching between them. And then like as the game goes on, your weapons last for longer and longer, the better weapons that you get. So it's like you're switching a lot at the beginning, which is a little bit annoying. But as you get like, you move off the wooden weapons, you move more towards the metal weapons, and then like guardian weapons and some of the high-end weapons in Hyrule Castle, like those things last for a long time.
And my main thing with the switching weapons is that even the ones that last a pretty good long time don't last quite enough for me. If they lasted about 50% more, I think it would be okay. Like that would be the perfect level, because I'll find a really awesome sword. And I found one today, actually. There is a giant sword statue that has been carved into the mountain on top of as you're going down into Gerudo. And it is just this gigantic, like 100-foot tall sword. And beside it, there is a golden claymore. And I love this thing, and it just doesn't last as long as I like. When I find one that's pretty and that you feel like it should last, it still breaks because of just as much as you have to hit things. And I would like to be able to either have like a single repair for them before they go away, or some system like that, or just give them about 50% more durability. It's not even that I want to keep my weapons, it's just that I'm tired of the inventory system with it, that I don't have enough room for them. I'd like to keep the ones I really, 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 really like just a little bit longer.
And that's what I want to talk about, because like the item degradation doesn't bother me. That part of the system I think is totally fine, even with how long they last. It doesn't bother me at all. The part that bothers me is the other part that ties into it, which is the inventory management. Inventory management in games is not fun. And this game gives you a limited, it's so weird because like you can pick up cooking ingredients, you can pick up key items, you can cook stuff, and you have not an unlimited inventory, but basically an unlimited inventory. Like it's really hard to hit the max for food or cooking or random stuff you pick up, but there's a very limited inventory for weapons and shields and bows. And I hate dealing with this because there's no way in the game to quickly drop them. And even that would go a long way towards making it better. But like when you see a new weapon and you know that it's better than your worst weapon, there should be a way to walk up to it, hit one button, and drop the worst weapon in your inventory and pick up that new weapon. And there's not.
Halo solved.
You have to go into a menu, go find that weapon, which is annoying because you have to scroll through and find, okay, which one is my worst weapon, like tap on it, or not tap on it, but hit the button to select it. And then you have to select drop. And then you go back to like the main game, try to walk over to the new weapon and try not to accidentally pick up the one you just dropped. Like you do that all the time. And it's not fun to go into your inventory and out. And it's a little bit less so for shields and bows, although they run into the same like issue. But the main weapon slot, I wish it was just like infinite, or at least there was a quick switch.
And the only thing that I found that's even quicker is switching to it and then throwing it. Using the on the Wii U, it is the like right button, the R button. It's not RZ, it's R, and you can just toss it. So I just throw whatever weapon it is away, switch to it, throw it, and then pick up the new one, where it saves a little bit of time that way.
Yeah, and that helps ever so slightly, but it's just not elegant. Yeah, it's clunky. It doesn't feel like it's designed as much as it should have been. And like, yes, you can expand the inventory. Like, all of those seeds that you pick up for exploring the world, you can use those to expand whichever inventory slot you want. By the end of the game, I had maxed out my primary weapon inventory, and it still just wasn't enough. I was constantly running into this. So the only system in this entire game that I just actively dislike is this inventory management for weapons.
Well, and also the food. I mean, I get hit a lot. Like, a lot. And
that wasn't as big of an issue for me.
Like, I get hit a lot, and I wish there was a quick menu for food. Kind of like Kingdom Hearts and the way that you use healing spells or items that way. I wish there was something to be able to pull up. Like, you hold down, I was like, oh, look, these are my elixirs and foods that I can eat right now. I'm going to die. Let me eat this steak. And I would love that. Except most likely for me, it would be a mushroom skewer.
Didn't you say your wife thought that you were playing like a turn-based RPG or something, or menu-driven in a boss fight?
So I was doing so bad at the Zora's Domain boss, the I can't remember his name, but the one at the very, very end. I was doing so badly that I was going in and having to switch weapons and eat so much of my food and drink my elixirs that Jennifer thought that I was playing a game like Final Fantasy that was menu-based. That I would throw something, hit something, get hit, go into a menu, eat, move around for just a second, get hit, eat something else. Like, she asked me, she's like, that was good job, you beat it. And I'm like, no, I failed. You just saw me be really, really, really terrible. Like, I failed at that. I failed at Zelda because you thought it was a menu-based game and it's an action RPG. I was like, that means I straight up failed. And I beat it, but I mean, it was gaming the system on that one because it pauses battle and completely restores you in the menu. Like, there is no reason I should have won. I've gotten so much better since then, but man, it was rough.
Yeah, Nintendo, keep working on that inventory system next game that comes out. But I mean, like I said, that's the only one where I actively felt like I was complaining about it and like fighting with it. Besides that, like, I love all the systems in this game. And like, even some stuff that other people have commented on, like the music, like, it's a really quiet game, but I kind of really like it. Like, there's not constant music. There are subtle music cues, and they kind of like come and go as they make sense. A lot of the time it's with the weather. Sometimes it's like when you're approaching an area or an object of interest, but it always kind of just like flows in and out of the background sound of the environment. And it's very subtle, but I think it just kind of works for this game.
The sound design in this game, like you said, is pretty much brilliant, I think, because I never noticed it until you mentioned it. That I just kind of, I sat and I played, and any time that there was something I needed to know what was going on, there was a music cue. Like, I knew that I was getting targeted by a guardian because the music changed to the you're getting attacked by a guardian music. When a blood moon was coming, I was like, oh, this one's going to be fun, so let me go somewhere safe and not kill something and get in the middle of a big fight, because I heard the music. Like, I would go into a new area and just the music would change before I even got the notice of anything. I'm just like, this is beautiful. Like, the way that it is designed is that it's a part of the world instead of something to entertain you. And they've done such a good job of making this game a cohesive whole where everything, it's like a very well scored movie where the soundtrack is not necessarily something that you ever think about, where it's just like there. And except in this one, the absence of it makes when it is there so much more meaningful.
Yes, and I don't know if you've no, this isn't really a spoiler, I'll talk about it. I don't know if you've like approached Hyrule Castle yet, just for fun.
Yes,
because I did fairly early in my run through the game, because there was one thing I wanted to get there. I'll talk about that later. It's more spoilery, but just approaching Hyrule Castle and like hearing the music swell up into some like classic Zelda stuff, and like it just like gets your blood pumping, because It's so subtle in most of the rest of the game, but then when you go into an area like that and it's dramatically appropriate, it kind of like slowly builds up under you and you just feel epic, for lack of a better word.
Really, that is the better word in that situation, because it makes you feel like this hero by doing it. It makes you feel as though you're an explorer having come upon something important.
Yes, for sure. Okay, we have a couple other things that aren't necessarily like connected, but I know you want to talk about horses.
I don't like riding things. I don't like them. I don't like it at all. I hate those horses having their own personalities. I, even at 100% bonded, I'm like, oh, look at you. You don't like me and you want to go left when I want to go over this bridge. Thanks, buddy. So I just leave them alone. I don't ride things.
Yeah, I caught a couple horses, and there are a few areas of the game where it makes sense to like go to the stable and get the horses back out, like Hyrule Field, for instance. But most of the game, I was so busy climbing on things that horses were just getting in the way, because like I wanted to go off the beaten path. I wanted to climb all the ledges around me, and horses can't do that. I mean, they can if you like force them to do weird things, but it takes way longer. Every time I tried to ride a horse, I would end up jumping off the horse and just jumping on a wall nearby and climbing it, and then I would leave the horse behind.
Now, I will say, though, there's one really awesome horse thing that happened that I tried to take a picture of, and then it ended like before I could get a picture of it to you, where at night, that in certain areas of the game, you will get a skeletal horse riders. You can knock them off the skeletal horse and steal their skeleton and run around on it all night long.
Yeah, it's fun.
That is awesome. And then the sun comes up and your horse dies, and it died as soon as I lined myself up for a really good photograph. And because I'm on the Wii U, I can't screenshot it and send it to people like you can. And so it was sad times.
The screenshot button on the Switch it's really good. Like, I stand by that from last week. I think it's the best system for sharing content from a console to date.
I was trying to get my cell phone to take a picture of my television, and my horse died. But riding a skeletal horse does make up for anything else that is awesome. And Epona may be different. I don't know. I don't have the amiibo to be able to play with Epona, so she may be completely different than the other wild horses that you tame.
Yeah, and I have a couple Zelda amiibo around, and I didn't even bother because, I don't know, it felt kind of like cheating to just get free items. I wanted to really explore and earn everything in this game, so I wasn't even tempted to use the amiibo. I know some people like them, but whatever. Did you want to talk about the item upgrades, or did we kind of already hit on it?
I think that's pretty much it. I actually have a question for you. Did you ever buy the bow?
Buy a bow? What do you mean?
Like the one where you get to craft the individual weapons up in the lab in the upper right hand corner? Did you ever buy the bow from the vendor there that you needed, the ancient bow?
No, I never crafted anything really.
Okay.
I did the armor upgrades and stuff,
right?
Because the fairies were interesting. And I liked the fairy fountain stuff, and upgrading the champion's tunic all the way. That was one of my own goals before I beat the game. I really wanted that because I just thought it was cool. It was obvious from the cutscenes and the structure of the game that is what Link is supposed to be in. So I wanted to use the champion's tunic as much as possible. And it turns out that you can upgrade that to the best armor in the game. So I did that before I took on the final boss, just because it was something I wanted to do. And it also gives you an excuse to see the dragons in the game, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that's what I'm working on right now, that as soon as I beat this level of the dungeon that I'm on, as soon as I beat this dungeon that I'm on now, the third Divine Beast, I'm going dragon hunting. That because I want to upgrade all of my champion's tunic, because I love it for the exact same reason you do, because that's what Link is supposed to be wearing.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. It just seems to fit him a lot. Okay, before we go into some of the, and guys, it's not very spoilery, but before we get to any of the story in this one, I just wanted to talk about this game is set up for just things to happen organically that are interesting. And it's the first time that Nintendo has made a system that they're not afraid that you're going to break it, because they just assume that you will break it and it'll be fun for you. And it's so different because Nintendo's so restrictive in the past. You have to beat this dungeon this way in this exact order, and the puzzle has one solution,
Yep.
Whereas now, there are different ways to approach the physics behind a lot of the things in this game. Sometimes you can just like fly up and over something and like get past a huge section where you were supposed to have combat encounter after combat encounter. And if you just go up high, jump off and like paraglide over it, you can skip it. Like, there are lots of ways to break this game. And I had fun doing that because I've talked about it before, but I'm very like systems driven, you know? So that was super fun for me. I wanted to talk a little bit about like, because of that, there are sometimes really interesting just organic events that happen. You know, have you had any like really memorable ones?
Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so the first time I really noticed it was I was walking along a river and I stopped to talk to somebody because it was like a traveling merchant or one of those traveling adventurers, and I needed to sell some stuff. So I started selling something, and as I was selling it, I got attacked by an enemy that was also wandering along the side of the river on the riverbank, and I started fighting that enemy. And right when I thought I had the situation under control, 3 lizards that were swimming up the river saw me, jumped out of the river, and came to attack me. So now I'm facing off against 2 different sets of enemies. And it was just like, was that scripted? I thought it must have been scripted. So I asked my brother and I asked you, and you're like, no, that didn't happen. Like, I explained exactly where it happened, and no one else had that happen. And listening to other people that I trust, like somebody had talked about how cool it was that it was like a scripted event, that when you jump off of the Great Plateau for the first time and you paraglide down, you land on a horse. And everyone went, wait, what? That didn't happen to me. That's not scripted. That was an organic thing that just happened to you. And the guy was like, his mind was blown, you know? And that kind of stuff happens all the time in this game.
My favorite thing that's happened to me was just, I like bombs. And I like throwing grenades and bombs in pretty much every Zelda and first-person shooter, and pretty much every game. I love things that you can toss and explode. And so I take back what I said last week about not knowing if I like the remote detonation bombs, because, oh my goodness, I love them. And
yes,
I was throwing one of the round bombs at a moblin, and it rolled down the hill at it. The moblin looked down at it and kicked it back at me. And I blew myself up because he did it at the moment that I clicked and it got back in range. I'm like, you jerk. You're smarter than you should be. I was like, he kicked my grenade back at me. I was like, that really blew my mind the first time. Like, you can read about them running and getting weapons when you don't sneak up on them, but when you see it happen, it's like, oh, that's cool. Or stealing the weapon when you knock it out of their hand. I love doing that. It's like, I'm picking that one up.
You and they don't know what to do. It's fun. Yeah, I ended up playing with fire a lot because I thought the fire stuff was fun in this game, like from fire arrows to torches to... I know that someone was sharing stuff around on Twitter and somebody accidentally lit a bear on fire and then jumped on it because you can use it as a mount, and then rode around a flaming bear, setting a forest on fire. That was pretty cool to see somebody do.
Yeah, that was cool. I saw that.
Yeah, so one of the things that happened to me that I haven't seen anyone else talk about, but I'm sure other people have run into it, there's an event leading up to one of the dungeons where you have to collect a bunch of electric arrows. And when you go to do it in this area, there's a centaur there. And I'm pretty sure that you can approach that whole area as a stealth thing. Like, you can sneak around, not let him see you, pick up enough arrows to complete your objective, and leave. But I got up there and I ran in there guns blazing, or swords blazing, whatever, and just got destroyed by this guy. And I was like, ooh, this is a fun challenge. Because at the time, I only had 3 hearts. I was still on 3 hearts. And I was like, I can beat this guy. No, I'm not gonna resort to sneaking. I want to beat this guy and just destroy this area because I think it'll be fun. So I spent like 45 minutes fighting this guy. And
yeah, I don't doubt it.
It was one of like the most fun encounters in the whole game for me because it was a challenge. And when I finally nailed it, I felt like a badass, you know?
Yeah, you never got hit then, because that I don't understand, because like, I'm this far into the game, and if I see a centaur, I just run. Because every time I fight one, outside of that one where I overextended my resources and had to build back up slowly to get all of my food back, I don't win. That I don't know what it is about them, but there is something about me missing a single dodge that puts me entirely off balance, and then they end up murdering me after that. That I can do fine up to a point,
Yeah, so I did that one with basically just dodging every single attack and getting flurry attacks in. And when I did that, like it was flawless because I was on 3 hearts. Like I had to do it flawlessly. It was such an accomplishment. I felt so good about it. That was the moment that I realized that I might want to do a 3 heart run of this entire game someday. Was beating that boss. But when I was that like 45 minutes when I was playing around with the encounter, one of the things that happened, and this is kind of the organic event part that I wanted to talk about, was there are really big like rocks, like really big stones in that area, and besides that it's mostly an open field with a couple like puddles and stuff, and it's raining. And he shoots electric arrows.
Wait, you say it was raining?
Yeah, well, it was raining.
It wasn't raining when I was fighting him, but so that was one thing I was like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen now as soon as you said it was raining.
Yeah, so it was raining, so every time he shot an electric arrow at me, like it had a really big radius effect. I don't know if the rain affects that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did because of the way this game is made.
Right. So
he kept destroying me with these arrows, and I was just looking around for another way to approach it instead of going like all melee all the time, and I saw that, you know, if I get up on top of one of these rocks, they're really, really big and they have like a big flat surface on top. I might be able to find an angle where he can't shoot me, but I can like kind of peek my head out and take pot shots at him until I like whittle him down to kill him. So I tried to do that. I got up on top of one of these rocks and I started taking pot shots at him, and he was trying to shoot me directly. And so I would just like, you know, move Link back a little bit. And so every time he was about to actually like let go of his arrow, I would move back and he would shoot the rock kind of near him. And I was like, this AI can't hit me. It doesn't have a good angle on me. I've got this. I can just pick away at this fight. And it'll be slow, but I will beat it this way. And after about a minute of him like shooting directly at me and hitting the rock, he suddenly shoots directly up into the sky. And I was like, oh, I broke the AI. Like I messed something up here. Like he doesn't know what he's doing. And then like 5 seconds later, an arrow comes down from directly above me and hits me square in the head and kills me instantly. Like, it was so good. It was so good. Awesome. I was so proud of Nintendo in that moment, like for not letting me exploit it the way that I wanted to. I was like, wow, I want to destroy this guy. And then I just decided to get good at the melee combat and just learned how to dodge all of his attacks. But I don't know, it was just such a cool thing that happened organically, you know? Like that's my favorite memory from the game probably.
Like that is awesome. My favorite is mine's a kind of a spoilery one, so I'm not gonna.
Well, we're about to get into spoilers anyway. That was the very next thing on the list. So if you guys don't want any story spoilers at all, I promise there's not a whole lot of story here to spoil, and it'll probably be fun to listen, so don't be too afraid to listen anyway. But let's talk about kind of some of the spoiler stuff. So go ahead. What was your favorite memory?
Well, my favorite one was just when I texted you, I found this place called the Forgotten Temple, and and the way that I ran across it was like we were talking about these organic events. I ran up into a tower and I did the whole thing, unlocked my map, did everything I needed to do, yada, yada, yada. And then I was doing my typical survey where I go 360 degrees and look for shrines to pin on my map. And when I did, I saw this dragon in this canyon. And I'm like, what? And I just look at it, I'm like, I bet I can jump on that thing. I've not seen this thing before. So I glided down and I missed it. And then I kept trying to chase him and jump and paraglide using the super ultra jump you get after one of the dungeons. And I couldn't get it. So I was like, he moved too far away. I'm not going to be able to attack him or to be able to ride him today. And so I just went the other direction. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I find this place called the Forgotten Temple. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And you look and there are ruins everywhere. And I love ruins. Like, I love them. So I just saw it and I was like, this is great. I'm going to explore this. So I go inside and I'm like, oh, it's empty. This is really, really awesome. I turned on my map and I'm like, this is its own little place here. I was like, this is great. And so I go further in, and as soon as I get in through the initial entryway part, I get highlighted by 3 different guardian lasers and get myself blown to smithereens, just blown up. Like, it is not there was no escaping this. And I just I went back, and that was when I spent that entire day, like, not that entire day, I shouldn't even say it that way. I spent as much time as I could. I didn't have any kind of guardian armor. I didn't have guardian arrows at this point. I went in and I cleared that entire guardian infested, like, long pathway to the shrine at the end of it using just my bombs and whatever weapons I had on me and arrows. And they were all stationary, thank goodness. They were all the stationary kind, it turns out. But it was using line of sight, like you were talking about, just making sure I took pot shots, running up, slashing at them a little bit, having their head whip around, shoot lasers at me as I, like, Tom Cruise sprinted away and leapt off of a cliff to paraglide to safety. Like, it was so much fun doing that, because I had absolutely no idea that this little area existed, that it wasn't on the main maps. I mean, it was on the map, but it wasn't part of the main quest. It wasn't one of these large places like the Lost Woods or something that you're expecting out of a Zelda game. It's just, hey, I found this place. Oh my goodness, I'm going to explore this, and basically have my own little mini adventure that I created for myself. Like, I have to get through this and learn how to do this. And it was just like you said with the centaur, it was learning how to, like, appreciate that system and get good at it. Like, I know that made me a better player by doing that, because now I can take those out with no problem.
Yeah, and it's like I have like 20 or 30 stories like that where it's just things that I stumbled on or discovered on my own or decided to work on, and it ended up being like some of the most fun I had in the game. And not to mention, like, the fact that with the Guardians, you, like, they just destroy you when you run into them at first. And by the end of the game, you have all these ways of dealing with them. And it's not that Link has necessarily more tools at his disposal. It's just that you understand it better and you are better as a player. Some of it is tools that you can use, but that's not necessarily the important part. The important part is, like, the player knowledge that you've gained. But I will say, it is super fun once you have a Guardian Shield. When they lock onto you and they try to laser blast you and you deflect it back into their eye, that's, like, so satisfying.
Do you have to hit the parry button to do that, or does it do it automatically with the Guardian Shield? Because I haven't tried.
You have to parry it perfectly. You have to get a perfect parry to knock it back into their face, which is why it feels so satisfying.
I wanted to make sure, because I didn't want to waste one of my Guardian Shields just by standing there, like, holding it at it, waiting on it to deflect.
Yeah, so that's really fun. Okay, so what did you think about, like, the story and the memories and the Divine Beast?
Okay, before I do any of that, in that line, before I get to what I actually think about it, one of the Divine Beasts is a giant robot camel. Like, who thinks that's a good weapon? Like, when you're building, like, weapons of mass destruction, you're like, my enemies are coming for me. You know what would protect my kingdom? A giant robot camel. Like, it's like, I saw this thing for the first time today, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And, but I love them. Like, I love the fact that these are the main parts of the dungeons. Like, these Divine Beasts are just phenomenal to me, that you get to go inside these gigantic robots and their entire labyrinths inside. Like, I adore this. And so for me, the like 100-year ago memories that you're piecing together, like, there's no story in the game itself that, you know, like you said, it's a Zelda story, meaning you're Link, you woke up, go beat Ganon. That's pretty much the story, even outside of the quest that you do. It's like, hey, there's this robot that's attacking my village, kill it. Or fix
it's like
it.
The present day feels like it's interesting gameplay systems and, like, just, like, systems and gameplay put together, and you're kind of, like, creating your own organic events, like we were talking about, that will lead you to Ganon. But that doesn't feel like it's the driving force behind the narrative. The narrative feels like it's all the stuff that happened 100 years ago that you slowly unlock by going to these memory points around the map. And when you reach a memory point and you activate it, you get a flashback to yourself with Princess Zelda 100 years ago.
And those are awesome. Like, I'm invested in that story, which made me really think about it. today, and when I was doing one of these, it's like, that's the story that's being told. You're not participating in this story at all. It's like you're watching a Chris Nolan movie, and it's like you're just getting pieces of this and putting them together out of order, and the only way that you're going to have a full story is by doing all of it. And at the end of the game, you're going to have been told an entire story, but it's out of chronological order. And because it's out of chronological order, that makes it a lot more meaningful for you to piece together this narrative on your own, even though it is being presented in an entirely in an entirely typical way. You know, you're getting pieces of a flashback. I mean, that's not a new mechanic, but it feels as though the storytelling is being delivered in a new way, which is, you know, what Nintendo has done with this game. Like, I love the fact that I'm not participating in the story like a Final Fantasy game, that I'm just playing and, oh, here's a time to learn more about the story you care about.
Yeah, it's oddly compelling, and like it ties in really well with the gameplay because you unlock the story by exploring. Like you have to explore to get to these points. So I think I did all of the memories before I did any of the Divine Beasts.
Oh, wow.
Just because I found it so compelling. And that's another reason that I did all the towers first, because I did the towers so that I could see like the topography of the landscape so that I could try to figure out where the memories had taken place and then go track them down. Okay. So I did like all of that before I beat my first Divine Beast. And the Divine Beasts, I think they're fine. Like they're good dungeons. They're solid. They don't last too long. Like each one probably took me about an hour the first time. And I bet if I were to go back and replay them now, each one would take half that, or maybe only like 20 minutes, which is probably good that it's not giant drag-on dungeons like old Zelda games. But the memories were like the part that was really compelling to me. Like the Divine Beasts were fine, and they added like to the champions stories, like all the other people that were with you as champions. But that core story with Zelda, I found it oddly compelling. And this is probably my favorite incarnation of Zelda as a character. I might still have to give it to the one in Wind Waker because she's kind of an awesome pirate. But I mean, this Zelda... And I don't know if you've unlocked all the memories yet, so I won't tell you like exactly what happens. But just by unlocking them, you learn that this Zelda is a scientist. And like
that's awesome.
She's a princess because she was born into it and she has to be, but her passion is science and figuring out technology and investigating things. And I love that about her, that she's not just a princess. Her whole point is not just to be there and be a princess. Like, she has passions outside of that. She loves science. She loves learning. And like that resonates with me so much. So I'm pretty sure this is my favorite Zelda character in the whole series.
Okay, now here is a spoiler for me that I want you to tell me about, okay? So this, for those of you who are listening, this is going to be a very minor spoilery discussion for near the end game. Is Zelda... Let me pause for a second. Is Zelda like actually fighting Ganon and like holding him off in Hyrule Castle like they said?
She is holding him off, but she's not like, it's not like a physical fight. It's like a contest of wills. Like you never... Okay,
but she is actually doing that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I love about it. That is something that I've been pushing for, that I was really hoping would happen, because this is not a rescue the princess story like it's setting it up to be. This is a Zelda is holding the entire world together right now, and you are going so that she doesn't lose at some point, or to be able to make sure that that like the entire world doesn't end. But she has been holding the world together for 100 years. You are not saving the princess. Like, the princess has saved you. Like, you are going to do your job that she saved you from because you failed. And it's like, that makes Zelda just so wonderfully interesting to me, because this entire time they're like, oh, you have to go in there and rescue. So I was like, Zelda don't need rescued. Zelda's in there doing her thing.
Yes, for sure. I like that a lot about this Zelda too. Like I said, it's a really good characterization of Zelda as a character and not just a princess.
Okay. I texted you about this yesterday, and so for those of you who haven't made it, there is a place called Eventide Island in the game, and it's a shrine that takes that you're a castaway. They take away all of your equipment, all of your everything but your iPhone, and they tell you that if you can get these three orbs onto these 3 altars, they'll give them all back. And so what I didn't know when I went in with that was that they don't allow you to save, so I had to redo a whole lot of it when I died at one point. And I love this. Like, it was so much fun to go through the Eventide Island stuff, and but I was super frustrated I couldn't save because I needed to go do something at one point. It's like, nope, got to push through. So this was one of those frustrating kind of long Zelda things. But there are 2 parts about this where this island made me like love the fact that you could do it in so many different ways, because I even did it in 2 different ways when I died and came back. Like, okay, there's a Hinox on this island, right? And it has the 3rd orb around its neck as a necklace.
Which,
how did you kill it?
Who haven't played the game yet? It's a giant. It's a giant with
it's a
one
giant
eye.
Cyclops. Yeah,
exactly.
You're basically Odysseus coming in, and it's sleeping, and then you wake it up and it attacks you. And it's like, how did you kill it? I'm really curious on this.
I killed it by attacking it last. So I did the rest of the island. I got 2 orbs into place. I killed everything else on the island, and I saved all the best weapons so that I could go take it on head on. And then I just dodged a lot.
Okay, so you took it on head on and dodged a lot and actually used weapons. So that's what I was curious about. I figured that was something that you had done. I led it up to the mountain, the not the tallest mountain where the actual shrine was on top of, but the other one that had the little campsite on. I led him.
The explosive barrels that are up there?
Where I'd used all of those to kill everything else already, so it was empty. I'd emptied it out, and so I stood on the edge of it and started throwing my bombs off at him, because you still have your iPhone. So I started throwing my bombs off at him, and waking him up and doing what little bits of damage I could, and just kept pelting him from above. And as he realized where I was and came up, I ran in circles and threw bombs at him every time the timer came up, and just ran in circles like a Benny Hill like intro throwing bomb, like
wow.
And just threw the blue bombs at him over and over and over again because I had no arrows or weapons left. And I won, and then it got me that 3rd orb, which I had to put on that floating island, right?
Yeah.
How'd you get over there, Void?
I just threw it in the water, and then I used the cryo pillar thing to lift the orb out of the water, and then I climbed on top of the cryo pillar, and I picked up the orb again and threw it into the hole.
Yep. See, that would have made sense. That would have made sense if I'd remembered I had the cryosis or whatever. What I ended up trying to do for a very long time was I chopped down a tree, and I pushed it out into the water and used it as a raft where I manipulated the physics enough to where I swam and bumped the orb with my head until I lined it up next to the tree that I'd cut down, stood on top of the tree, grabbed it, and threw it really quickly before the physics pushed me off, and then used the Revelo's wind to jump up and paraglide down onto it to put it in the hole.
Wow, I love this game. This game is so fun.
This is why I had to ask that, because I was so proud of myself for doing that. And then I was like, I know he didn't do it like that. I know there has to be a better way than this, but I put it in my head. I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did.
You found a way to do it. That's the important thing. Cool. Yep. Anything else spoilery that you wanted to hit on?
For those of you who don't dodge things like I do, if you stand in all the fire, do Zora first, because you get a free res every 30 minutes, and that is the most useful thing in this game. I've gotten so many fewer game over screens because of that. Just that little bit of extra help has so made my life better. Like, I also really want another Rito bow, like the ones that get super long and shoot like 3 arrows that you get after beating the 2nd dungeon. Can you get any more of these really awesome bows like that? Or is that the only one?
No, after you beat the flying bird divine beast dungeon, which there's no real first, second, third, fourth dungeon. It's just whatever order you want to tackle them.
Right. That was a second for me.
If that was your second one, after you beat that, you get totally different dialogue options with all of the people in the town. Just like after the Zora one, all of the Zora dialogue ones become different. One of the birdmen that you talk to, he offers to make you more of those bows. You just have to bring him the right supplies.
Awesome. I'm going to go check that out next time I log in, turn it on.
You should check that out.
Because I talked to a whole bunch of people, but I just must have missed that one. So awesome.
Yeah, he tells you straight up that he'll make you more bows. You just have to bring him whatever he needs for it.
Awesome.
I will say that if you're more like me and you don't need the hearts and you don't need the life, like free res every 30 minutes, go tackle the flying divine beast first, because it has the best power for exploration, which we're already in spoilers here, but like it lets you charge up your jump. And if you charge up your jump, it'll like send you flying super high up in the air with like a burst of updraft. And you can abuse that the whole rest of the game to get places you're not supposed to be, or to get places faster, or just to make exploration easier. And I love that one.
It's so much fun. Like you telling me, you were like, you didn't even tell me what it was. You just said it makes exploration better.
I think I told you, go to the Northwest Divine Beast if you want to make exploration better.
Yep, that's what you told me. And so I did. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is everything I've ever wanted in the world. And I love it. Like, it's seriously awesome.
Yeah. And okay, so the last spoilery thing that I wanted to say was, this is my favorite Ganon fight ever. And I don't want to ruin it because it's really cool when you get to it. But I mean, it's a last boss. It has multiple stages. I don't think that's a huge revelation to anybody.
Right.
The first stage of Ganon is about what I expected, and it was fine. It was a boss like the other bosses in the game. The second stage of Ganon in this game was my favorite Ganon fight ever, and it felt truly epic. It wasn't like hard, but it was just it was very satisfying.
It's very hard for me not to go look up YouTube videos of it to know what's going on, but I want so much of this game to be just fully experiencing it without looking at anything spoilery, strategy guide, or anything at all. Like I said, there's only been like one thing that I looked up because I wanted my Master Sword after you told me like what. Like you had mentioned in passing, oh, you need this many heart containers. You need your 13 heart containers to get the Master Sword. And so when I knew that, I went for the hearts for secondary reasons with that. And then I was like, I want to get my Master Sword in the morning, so I'm going to finish this out right now. But that was
the only reason I got hearts, was because I wanted the Master Sword, because it felt like kind of the right way to play through the game was to beat all the divine beasts and get the Master Sword before you take on Ganon, even though I know you don't have to. Like, all of that feels optional, which is why speedruns are going to be insane of this game. But I wanted that Master Sword, and you have to have 13 hearts to be able to get it. Otherwise, it's just, you can't. It's impossible. So I ended up finishing the game with exactly 13 hearts, because that's how many I had to have to get the Master Sword.
And you had mentioned that you went into Hyrule Castle early. I'm assuming it was to get the Hylian Shield or Hylian Shield.
Oh, no, it was to get the memory. There's a memory in Hyrule Castle. So I did it
like
before
inside?
Yeah, it's like way up near the top between two of the towers. So I did that before I beat any of the divine beasts, just because I wanted the memories.
Nice. Because I was going to ask about the shield, because I know it still has durability and I'm not getting it until the end. Like, I thought about running in and grabbing it and coming back out, and I decided that I was going to wait because I knew it would break eventually.
I think with that one, after you pick up the first one in Hyrule Castle, if it breaks, you can like, there's somebody in the world where you can have them make you another one, but you have to get the first one.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a couple things in this game where it's like, it seems like a one-use item, but you can find people to remake it for you, which is weird because it's like not how the rest of the weapon systems work, but there are a couple exceptions, like the bow you were talking about and like the shield, stuff like that.
You know, and it's because of the trident that you get in the Zora place. It may be the almost legendary weapons that belong to each of the races.
Yeah, it might be something like that. Cool. Okay, what do you have? Final comments for the game, and then we'll do very quick weekly geekery because we're already running long.
I honestly don't know if I'll ever play through this game again. that this may be my favorite. This is my favorite Zelda ever. And it pretty much, like I said earlier, it makes me feel like I did when I was a young teenager, playing Ocarina of Time. Like, that's how awesome I think it is. But I may only ever play through this game one time simply because of how big and expansive it is and just how much there is to do. Like, I am diving deep and fully into this that I may only ever experience this once, and I'm kind of okay with that.
But you like it.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Like, this is, it makes me want to go play the older Zelda games after this. Like, it makes me want to go and actually try, like, Twilight Princess HD and get through the Monkey Dungeon and see about it. And, like, eventually at some point try Skyward Sword. But I know I'm going to be let down. I absolutely know that I'm going to be let down after this. You're only going to be let down.
Yeah, that'll happen. So my final thoughts. This is my favorite Zelda game, no question. It's absolutely my favorite Zelda ever. And because I played it so much in such a short period of time, I now want every game that I play to be on the Nintendo Switch because I love this form factor. And I know I talked about it for like an hour last week, but having lived with it for another week on top of that, like, I'm already sad that Mass Effect next week will not be on the Nintendo Switch because I want to be able to take it with me wherever I am in the house. I want to be able to take it out of the dock and play it in a chair when my kids are using the TV. I want to be able to take it to bed with me and play for a while I'm winding down for the night. Like, I'm already so attached to the Nintendo Switch form factor, and Zelda, because of Zelda and like the intense period of time that I played it for such a long amount in such a short period of time, has utterly convinced me that this form factor is like perfect for me. And on top of that, just about the game itself, this is obviously a Game of the Year contender for me. And I think it is for you too, right?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how there's anything that can compete with this. Like, Persona 4 is really good, but like, and I know everyone says that it's like this amazing game, and I'm sure I'll experience it, but I'm not sure if anything can make me feel like, because this one has made me feel, which is weird. Like, it's so full of nostalgia and just wonder that it's going to be really hard for another game to live up to that.
Yeah, I have high hopes for Persona 5, and
makes sense.
Yeah, besides that, I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda I'm really excited for also, and Hitman was a fantastic game, but like, Zelda is definitely going to be in the running for Game of the Year for me. I mean, it's way too early to tell. It's March right now, but it's obvious after beating it that like, this is a Game of the Year contender, no question. Okay, cool. With that, Geeky Offer of the Week, we'll make it really quick this week. You could get Zelda or Persona 4 Golden or any other game you could imagine on GameFly, and we can give you a free month and you can help us out, and you get a free month and we get some stuff from it. So if you go to gameflyoffer.com/geek, you get a month free and you can try it out, and it's a really cool service that we like. That's all I'll say for this week. With that, it's time for Weekly Geekery, which we will make fast because we're already long. I got a second Switch dock because I love the form factor of the Nintendo Switch so much that I wanted it on both of my TVs. So I bought another dock for it. And I've actively been taking it to different rooms of my house, like I was just talking about. Like, I just love the form factor of this thing. And sometimes I'm playing it in bed in handheld mode, and then sometimes I'm upstairs in my room and I dock it and I grab a Pro Controller and play it. Like, I don't know. I just love this console. It's so good. And because I beat Zelda and I didn't want to stop playing the Nintendo Switch, I also got Shovel Knight again. I think this is like the third time I've bought it, but I love that game.
Wow.
So I've been playing Shovel Knight a little bit on the Nintendo Switch just to have something to play for another week or two until more Switch games comes out that I fully intend on buying. Outside of that, I also got a Curiosity box, which have you ever... Well, I mean,
no.
You know what Loot Crate is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's Loot Crate, and then there are other services that are boxes that like creators put together, and they come out like once every quarter, so it's like once every 3 months. So it's instead of... I mean, it's approximately the same amount that you pay for Loot Crate, but instead of paying a little bit every single month and getting like a little box of kind of trinkety stuff, you pay one bigger chunk once every 3 months. And you get like really nice stuff in it. So I got my first Curiosity box, which is by like the Vsauce guys on YouTube, because I really liked their content. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, YouTube content I actually watch. And it had all sorts of like cool sciencey stuff in it and little science experiments that I did with my kid and like my kids and like little knickknacks that were this like curiosity themed. There was a book in it. There was a t-shirt. There was, a pin, like some of the stuff you would expect from any crate, but it was just curiosity. And I have like such a huge curiosity for things that it seemed like a good fit for me. So I liked the initial like starter crate that they send you when you sign up. That's the one I got, but I'm really excited to see going forward because this one was kind of like a best of box, and it was good, but it was also kind of a little bit disjointed. Like it was kind of random stuff, And
yeah, but that sounds really cool though.
It was really cool, but going forward, like I think they're more on theme, So if you get a standard box, like it has a theme that the whole thing is based around. So I'm more excited to see what that looks like, even though I like this first one a lot. But that was it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of themes they do.
Yeah, most of my week was playing Zelda, so that's literally all I have for Geekery this week.
Yeah, I mean, I played Persona 4 for a little while, got into it to see how the characters interact a little bit more, and did some fights and played with the personas themselves, and then I ended up grabbing the Wii U and had a buddy come into town and just played Zelda. Like it was awesome. Like I've pretty much just played Zelda this week since last time. Played Persona and Zelda, but like I cannot think of anything other than that I've done.
Zelda is so good. I'm still playing Zelda. Like I beat it and I'm still playing it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. You said that you still want to play the Switch, and I'm like, there's more in Zelda, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff I haven't found yet. There's things like, you were talking about that Forgotten Temple. I haven't run into that yet. There's lots of places that I know that I just want to go explore. And I only have about 70 of the shrines. I think there's like 120. Yeah. So, I mean, I have almost half of them left that I can still hunt and find. So I'm still playing Zelda, even though I beat it. And yeah, I'm loving it.
I really want to get all 120 shrines. That I don't know if I will, but I really want to.
Do you know what you unlock when you do that?
I sure do.
Okay.
Does it have any bonuses or anything when you get it?
I have no idea, but it is the traditional Link tunic. So the green tunic. And I read something like that, an interview with the game creators, and they said that traditional look of Link, because graphics keep getting better, it's harder and harder to make it look cool. They said that...
I bet.
Because of the hat, it looks dumb when you go to high definition. And I thought it was the funniest thing because I was reading about it and they were talking about all the solutions that they've tried to do over time. And you can tell this is the game where they finally just gave up, Yeah. Because they were talking about how like in, I think it was Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess, they made it like a really long tail on the hat so that it can have some like interaction with the wind and movement and stuff. And it had a little bit more give to it and like move with your character. But they said that like it just doesn't look cool, which is why Link doesn't really have a hat in this game compared to old games. I just thought it was funny.
I'm really happy about that too, because I like the way he looks in almost everything in this game except for just a couple of the armor sets.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Okay, we should wrap up. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have our longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast. Come into the subreddit and tell us all about your organic Zelda experiences. I want to hear other things because just talking with you, like I want to hear what other people experienced as the first time that they were kind of like wowed by this game.
Yeah, I mean, you actually took the words right out of my mouth when I was going to say that when you finished up that part about the subreddit. So yeah, come and talk to us about Zelda. And if you want us to give you email updates about whenever any new episodes go out from any of our network's podcasts, you can sign up at geek2geekcast.net and just tell us which ones you want updates about.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's. And I blog and podcast at geekfitness.net.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Breathing wildly.
Comics. Hey everyone, this is Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek.
And this is Liam, the languishing, lascivious Liam of Langley.
Wow, that was extremely illiterate of you.
Well, I try.
We are the hosts of The Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network.
So join us.
Bop, bop.
Oh, yeah.